This guest is so special to me in that he is my best friend. And
in our first 4 years, we grew 300% year over year.
wow.
So we became a $100 million business in our fourth year. The qualities of the leaders that I aspire to, the people that I like to surround myself with, they lead with love. I think business does better with love. I think business does better with kindness. And given what's going on in the world, I think more so that's needed today than at any time in history.
Welcome back to another episode of the Breakthrough Code. And this is a very special episode for me. Every guest that I bring on, I know to a certain extent. I love something about who they are, what they do, and that's why I bring them to you. This guest is so special to me in that he is my best friend. And I'm not bringing him on because he's my best friend. He's incredibly successful, and he's got an amazing story that we can all learn from. But I still remember the first day that I met him. It was at a little school I was going to in Fayetteville, North Carolina. My father had been in the military at Fort Bragg. And so Fayetteville is the town right next to it where a lot of the military people live. And I was in this little school, this religious school. And there weren't that many kids in the grade. So you knew all the kids every year, and they would just kind of continue. And all of a sudden, this new kid showed up, and he was like full of energy and life and riding around and making friends. And I'm like, who is this guy? And sure enough, he ended up being my closest friend, seventh grade through high school. And then we've lived in different areas. We've lived in the same area for parts of our adult lives, but so many years later, and I don't remember what year that was, but a lot of years later, he's still someone that I love and care about. His name is Michael Hutchison, and he went to Georgetown University, was very successful there, was a football player, was a lacrosse player, graduated from there, and then went to work at a company that you might not recognize, but back in the day, it was a very successful company. It was called EDS, and it was started by a billionaire by the name of Ross Perot. Ended up being bought by General Motors, but Mike, and some people call him Michael. I've always called him Mike or Hutch. So Michael's a little too formal for me, I think. So, but Hutch at EDS quickly rose through the ranks. He was there just a few years, and he was in recruiting and was heading up the Central European division for recruiting. And then I did something pretty crazy. I left my job as a financial advisor around that time when he was working with EDS, and I moved out to California to help run sales and marketing for Tony Robbins' company. And I still remember the trip that I took to see Hutch and his family. At the time, he just had a beautiful young daughter, Erin. And I remember when I left seeing you up in Washington, D.C., you were concerned about me. I think you were actually crying because I was moving out to California to work with this guy, Tony Robbins, who knew back then that he'd become what he was. And you were very, very concerned with me. But I think a year later, you actually joined me. I convinced him to join me in helping to run sales and marketing. And so he became part of that company. And after I left, he ran the whole thing and helped create Master University for Tony, helped launch Master University. And then he's had several different companies since then. But the one that we're going to focus on today is the one you can see in the background. It's called InCruises. And Michael started InCruises. What year did you actually start it?
So it'll be 8 years in January.
Man. Yeah, time flies. So 8 years ago, he started this company. And, not as a spring chicken, but as somebody in his 50s, and launched this incredible company that has right now 1.4 million members. So it's a travel company, a travel membership company that helps people see the world at discounts and really go to amazing places. They have 304,000 or over 304,000 marketing partners that are bringing members in. They have people in 205 countries and they've had 351,000 plus total guests, either in cruises or hotels, and just an amazing, amazing story. So welcome to the Breakthrough Code, my brother. Really great to have you here.
Hebert, I'm so grateful. I love you. I appreciate you. And what's amazing is we're going on 50 years.
Now people know how old we are. Yeah, it's a long time.
and we still love each other. And I realize I haven't been the best of friend. The last 8 years been heads down, as you can imagine. But what a treat to be with you, and you just hearing and seeing you fires off all sorts of wonderful memories. And again, I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Hutch's family is so close to me too, and his father, who passed away a couple of years ago, his mother, his incredible family. So this is someone I'm really excited to introduce you to. So let's talk about, like, one of the things I love about your story. Everybody thinks InCruises right now is a incredibly successful company, like, super profitable all over the world, doing tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. Most people think that, okay, you come into life, bam, you're very successful. It's a straight line. Everything works out perfectly. But as I said, this company, which financially is your biggest success, you've had successes in the past, and you've had setbacks in the past, just like I have and we all have. But this happened later in life. Like, you kept pushing and pushing and learning and growing and stubbing your toe and getting back up, and have been able to create this. What is your philosophy that enabled you to keep going? Like, a lot of people would have thought, okay, I'm 40, I've pretty much reached my peak. What kept you going beyond where you were at 40, which was in a good place, right? But what kept you going beyond?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to, again, you're very, very humble, T-Bird. You had the most immediate impact in my career, that opportunity to work with you and Tony, and to really pioneer and spearhead the business seminars, for Tony. And it really helped him, transcend from that, personal development, personal transformation into a business community. I think is, probably the shared legacy that you and I have, with Tony. And for me, that time with Tony is where I got introduced to this channel. I call it a channel, and that's the word of mouth. Some people call it relationship marketing, social sharing. And when I saw that, those leaders were attracted to Tony's events and Tony's seminars, and I always considered that channel, to be one of the bastions of free enterprise, where you could empower somebody to be an entrepreneur and try and help them to become a business owner. And so I fell in love with that channel, and I had this vision that I would be able to create an impact for that channel. I just couldn't figure out, T-Bird, how to get there, right? I couldn't figure out a product that, I think what's important to you and I is that, integrity and putting our name behind, something that we believe in. And so I, had my, fits and starts, and but the travel industry, that we hit upon was, I think, something that everybody, wanted to participate in, and is easy to have a conversation about. And yeah, I stubbed my toes. The business that I started before InCruises, I wasn't able to launch. I spent months, working with a very wealthy family. I'd put, my team together, lawyers, compensation analysts, and I couldn't launch it. And then I had the good fortune of working with my business partner, Frank Cadena, and I had my ideas, and he had his ideas, and we tested the waters with a former executive, and the rest, if you will, is history. Is that we got together and we decided to make a positive interruption in the cruise industry. We found out that cruising was by far the fastest growing and the most profitable segment. And, Uber had already positively interrupted transportation. Airbnb had positively interrupted overnight stays and hospitality. and the cruise industry had not been positively interrupted. And so that's where we decided to focus in this particular niche. And but yeah, we've been very fortunate. But no, it's been a struggle. We've taken a step forward, a step back. I think your audience will be keen to know that about 2 weeks before our launch, since neither Frank or I had cruise industry background, we were consumers of it, right? We traveled our lives, as part of growing up in a military family. I got to travel the world, but I didn't have a travel background, and so we looked for a partner that could bring that expertise to the fold. And we spent months trying to find that partner, and then we found it. And then when we found that partner, we told our story, and they liked our story, and then they extended to us a 5-year exclusive agreement where we were going to do all our bookings through them.
Yeah.
And we thought we had hit pay dirt, right? That we had a $1 billion partner that, again, was the largest retailer of cruises in the world, and they were going to be our partner, and they wanted an exclusive from us. And as we got closer and closer, they ended up extending to us this agreement. We went back and forth with the attorneys and red lines, and then just before Christmas, we were scheduled to launch in January. I get a call from the SVP that was in charge from their side, and I thought she was calling me to say, "Hey, contract done. Let's celebrate. Let's go to work." And she called me to say that we've had second thoughts and we're going in a different direction. And oh, by the way, we are concerned that we have a travel franchise division, and we think we might be upsetting that. And so every instance where our name is mentioned on the internet, we'd like for you to take that out, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So again, T-Bird, we had a concept, we had an idea that was right for members, and we started doing our pre-marketing and filming, and started telling our friends and neighbors about it, and then we had this huge setback.
Yeah.
And then the by the way was sort of a legal threat of we need you to expunge, was the word she used, and that's a legal word, right? That you don't want to mess with. And it was essentially take our name off the internet in every opportunity. And this was a couple of weeks before our launch. Yeah. And so you know what I did? I promised the kids that I was going to take them on a cruise, and I went ahead and I did that. And we went on a cruise, and so we went down to Miami, and I had Aaron and Kevin and Mike, Pat, Sean, and that was my my promise to them as their dad, because like I'd work 6-7 days a week. I didn't stop and do all the pre-launch work, and then we had this again a terrific setback. And while on the cruise, and you've been there with Tommy and Kylie and Stace, you sit down with people that you don't know, and invariably people ask, what do you do? Yeah. And I'm thinking in my head, what do I do? I thought we were gonna just not be able to launch the company, and I said, I'm starting a travel membership club. I said, I'm starting a cruise membership club. Yeah. And people would stop and say, "You're starting what?" And I said, we're starting a cruise membership club. And they're like, "Well, where in the heck were you when I went to book this thing?" And I said, we're just getting started." And so that initial conversation led me to go back to my partner and say, "Hey, Frank, full speed ahead. We're on the right path. Let's just go and create relationships directly with the cruise lines, and all this is going to work out." And I remember one guy kept pursuing me on the cruise, and I'm like, "Sir, please just enjoy your vacation, and be happy to take your name and follow up with you when we get back." And so we launched it in January, awesome. 2016, and the rest they say is history.
Yeah. So one of the things about you, one of the many great things about you, is you're relentlessly positive. Like, you can take a hit, get knocked down, and just like that situation, and a cool story, like, "Hey, didn't work out. I'm taking my kids anyways because I already promised them this trip." Like, that takes it takes just fortitude to stay moving forward like that. And that's what you've done. I mean, you've taken some hits in life, as we all have, right? But some of yours were big ones, but you kept moving forward. What is the belief system that you have that allows you to get your ass kicked, knocked to the ground, and keep going? What is it that allows you to have that positivity that still sees the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah. I think it's the references that you and I share. T-Bird, growing up together, we were, fortunate to, play sports together. And the coaches that we had, we were coached by, Bruce McFerrin, our high school coach. We played tennis together, and so I think I look back to my references as an athlete, and that I love one of your sayings, and in fact, it's a philosophy that I've tried to share with my team, and that is that nothing really matters except the meaning that we give it. And I hope I quote you correctly, T-Bird, because I've been doing it for a long time, and that is that who you are as a person. 5 minutes ago, you have no obligation to be that person.
Yeah.
So, and maybe I messed it up, but
no, yeah. You're under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. So that's kind of cool. So you look at it like, all right, what just happened? That was the past me. I'm creating a new me every minute.
Yeah. And so just that short-term memory.
Yeah.
And again, I look at any setback. I look at,
yeah.
And again, I probably the most painful things to look back on was the passing of my dad. Right. And I looked at, my dad in the last couple of years of his life. And, my dad, had a tracheotomy. And so he had a feeding tube in his stomach. So he had to breathe, through his throat, and he got fed, through his stomach. And yet, the last 2 years of his life, he was able to tell my mom, that he loved my mom.
Yeah. And I feel your emotion. Yeah. Your dad was amazing. Your dad was one of those guys that just kept going too. I think a lot of that you probably got from your dad. He was a Air Force officer, pilot, incredible dad, overcame a lot himself, and then battled through a very, very, very tough cancer. But, whenever you saw him or around him, he was always just steady, moving forward, making sure everybody was taken care of. Called him the Colonel. Yeah, the Colonel he was awesome. I love him.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and I never had the privilege of meeting your dad, but I would imagine your dad was the same way. And I know your dad's story, and that, those stories, those references that we had in our lives, and being around. And, I harp on my team to have, travel bucket lists. But I think being around, Tom McCarthy has given me a bucket list of values and references in my life, that, it doesn't matter what happens. It's the meaning that you give it, and it's the associations that you bring to it. But
well, I feel the same way. I feel the same way about you, brother. One thing you said too that was really good is short-term memory. It's funny. I think I've always had a pretty short-term memory, and or not a very good short-term memory. In that, I can remember things, but like even the setbacks I've had, I don't remember them that well. Like I don't. And I don't remember a lot of the positive things that well either, right? You kind of move on. It's like those are past. If you're harping on the fact, back in high school, I was the big stud. Like, come on, you're still living in high school, right? Or back in high school, it was horrible. I can remember some things. Obviously, some things like were big pops that stand out. But having a short-term memory, not dwelling on the past so much. Someone was just asking me, I think on Monday, they just said, what'd you do over the weekend? I'm thinking, what did I do? And I don't think it's like because I'm old, because I've always been like that. Like I would be on a plane and I'd watch like a movie or something like that. Oh, that's a great movie. And then, I'd get home and I'd be telling my wife, and she goes, what's the name of it? I go, God, I don't remember the name of the movie, right? It's like, but having a short-term memory, I think, is or having short. Is it not having short-term memory, or what? I don't know what it's called. But like letting things go is really a gift, and it's something I think people can develop too, because so many people are living a past version of themselves. Yeah. Like if you would have done that, this company wouldn't even be here.
No,
right? You kept reinventing yourself, and that allowed you to get lucky, right? And I studied years ago why certain people get lucky, and there's this person, a professor in London, Richard Wiseman, and there was like 4 reasons, but he said you can learn to be lucky, right? And I feel like I'm pretty lucky, like I'm super lucky, but I had things in my earlier life, people look, oh, you weren't that lucky. And I've had things throughout life where, but I've always believed that you can create luck, right? And a lot of people look at, someone like you and they go, oh, he just got lucky. Yeah, he got lucky, but he got lucky because he was following certain principles. He was constantly looking for the positive and growing beyond setbacks. He was expanding his network of people. That's another reason you get lucky. You talk to people on a cruise, and this one guy said, I want to be part of what you're doing already. I don't even have the thing open yet. But and that's one thing you've always been good at. That's one thing actually back to even, high school. You've always been so good at thinking about others and including others and welcoming others. And I'm sure that is absolutely one of the reasons why you have so many people in your company and they love you. I see on social media when you show up and it's like, the Pope arrives, and it's fun watching, all these people. And it's not like you're trying to sit up on some pedestal and be better than everybody else. The reason people love you is because you're just like them. You're with them. If anything, you put them up on a pedestal. How have you give your kind of some tips on how other people can do that? Like how can they increase their network of friends and people? Because that is absolutely one of the reasons why opportunities happen, why luck happens. Like the more people you know, and if you're good at something, they know about you, the more opportunities come to you. But what are your tips on how to expand your network and in any business or just even friends? Like, what are your tips on how you kind of nourish people and take care of people and make people feel good and included?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tibor. Thank you for those compliments. I think it, just starts with, that servant, attitude, again, that I got from my dad. You may or may not know that, before my dad passed, had a career as a pilot and then a teacher. And then when he was retired, he devoted his time to the Kairos ministry, which is a prison ministry.
Yeah.
And he said it was probably, outside of, the impact he had with his family, the most influential thing that he did. And the focus of Kairos was, to listen to these prisoners and not judge, and, listen, love was the, sort of the mantra, the catchphrase of Kairos. And so, that has had an impact in my life, going to school at Georgetown, the Jesuit, again, servant, mindset. And so I think, just, again, the Tony Robbins influence, the Tom McCarthy impact of, living to give, living, focus on adding value to others to solve a problem. And I think that's why I connect so well with our independent promoters. I've been an entrepreneur, and I've done well in some, businesses, and others I've not done well. And so I understand how hard it is, and the effort and energy, and it takes every fiber of your being, to make a business and enterprise work. And so I think the ability to, to empathize with people and, put myself in their shoes, I do really well with. One of the ways that, Frank and I met was I knew a fellow by the name of Kevin Harrington. Kevin Harrington was one of the original sharks on Shark Tank. And so the way that I, added value to Frank in the business that he was running was I I brought, Kevin down to Miami to meet Frank with no expectation and just wanting to, to help and to add value. So I think if you go into relationships wanting to strengthen them, and focus on, the value that you can add with, no expectation return, that's a good place to live. And so, that's the impact that I've been able to, create with your team. And I think, we have a business that compounds itself. That you create a relationship, you add value, you solve a problem, you enable people to have joy by going on a trip, by going on vacation, and there's nothing better, T-Bird, than to experience that joy. And I have to say that most people say it's better to give than to receive. I think it's both, right? I think it's better to give and to receive, because you're twice blessed. You feel great. And you help somebody else. And so I think going into it with that mindset, that tip is probably the best thing I could offer.
Yeah, and that's important. I like the distinction you made. It's best to give and to receive, because there's a lot of people that are givers, but they're almost martyrs, right? They don't know how to receive. They don't want to receive. They're not letting blessings and all the good things coming back into their life. And I probably had to learn that a little bit. I think I was a little bit of a martyr when I was younger, and like, hey, I can receive too. It's okay to do that. One thing I think that again, you were very good at a younger age, and I probably had to teach myself it, at a younger age, but it really has made me create a lot of success for me. And that is just being kind to people, no matter what, not because you think there's some business benefit that might be derived from it. And I think, you certainly were a great role model for me, Matt, in high school. My grandfather was a great role model for me with that. He was super kind to everybody, even the place where he lived, this luxury apartment complex, the doorman, where most people were just like, it's just the doorman. I mean, they were his friends, right? He always was curious, how things were going for them. How was their family? I think even in his inheritance, he left them some money, right? But there's so many situations in my life, and I know in yours, where just by being kind, like I the story I was actually, when I was teaching part of Master University for Tony in London, I was on this cruise ship that was parked as a hotel right there in London. So it wasn't a operating one, but you stay on the ship, and it was right near this big conference center. And I'm coming down the elevator, and these two gentlemen in Middle Eastern attire were coming down, and this was like year 2000 or something like that. And I just looked at him and I said, how you guys doing today? Right. Just started a little conversation, curious. And I go, we're doing good. I said, where are you guys going? We're going to this seminar. I go, what seminar? They go, it's a mastery university seminar, wealth mastery. And I said, I'm heading there too. Let's walk together. I didn't tell them I was, the instructor. They didn't know who I was. And so we go there and we had this great conversation. One's from Oman, one's from Malaysia. And then they saw me speak. And so we're coming back at the end of the night. Hey, you didn't tell us. There's several thousand people. They go, you didn't tell us you're the speaker. I said, what? Yeah, I thought you figured it out. And they go, we want to bring you to Dubai. And I'm like, where's Dubai? Like, I didn't even know where it was, right? And they go, we want to bring you over to, do some seminars. And I'm like, I don't know if that they'll really follow through. They did. They brought me over twice. And then a guy there met me and he said, I want to bring you to Kuwait. He brought me over like 15 times.
I remember that.
So one little conversation in an elevator generated, millions of dollars of revenue for me. And I wasn't even trying to do that, but that's just the kindness. And that's what I see that in you all the time. It's why people want to be around you. And I think it's something that if more people modeled, all of you listening, if this is not your methodology, next time you're in an elevator, just say hi to someone or compliment them on their a shirt or a blouse or something they're wearing, or wish them a good day when you leave. I mean, little things like that. Thank the Uber driver, talk to the Uber driver. You see someone having a tough time, like smile at them, all these different things you can do. And don't go, all right, I did it. Where's my reward? Because you don't think that way, and I don't either. There's people I've coached in the corporate world where I've coached them for nothing and didn't ask for anything, and yet then they come back and they bring all sorts of business, right? So I love that is just part of who you are. Hey, let's talk about our time with Tony Robbins. So I was there for, I think, a little less than 3 years. You were there for longer. You started after I did, but then you stayed longer. I think the biggest thing that I learned from him was that you can actually choose how you feel. Like, whatever happens is going to happen, but because you didn't like it doesn't mean that you have to be depressed and down and go, oh, woe is me. You can actually go, hey, you know what? There's something good happening in this. I just got to figure out what it is. You can actually choose how you feel. And I think that, there's a lot of lessons we learned there, but to me, that was the biggest thing. Cause I didn't, it sounds simple now because people know about emotional intelligence and everything, but I didn't really know that. I thought, something bad happens at the beginning of the day. It's like, oh, no, it's going to be a tough day. But that to me was one of the biggest things that I learned from him. What would you say, and maybe it's that or something different, what would you say is a big thing you learned from him?
No, you're absolutely spot on. And maybe just a little bit of a different version of that is that I think the quality of your life, the quality of your business, comes back to the habitual emotions that you feel, and where you're at home, habitually in terms of your emotion, which I think ties into what you were talking about earlier. I'm at home, T-Bird, with like you, complimenting. I'm at home encouraging. I'm at home, loving on my kids, my family, my team, and that's the place that I'm most comfortable with, right? And I think people go back to the place that they're comfortable with, right? And so that's where I live, and so that ability to to love on people and to encourage them is a habitual emotion that I try and stay in tune with, and that emotion of gratitude and as a tip, keeping a gratitude journal, something that again that I work on every day in the evenings or before I start my day, to get into that habitual emotion, that feeling of being grateful, being loving, being kind. Quick fun story. I remember going to Eastern Europe for the first time, and I was asked to speak and present at a leadership conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they had like Stephen Jobs, business partner Steve Wozniak speak, and these other speakers, and I get up there and I talk about leadership, qualities of leaders, and the first three qualities that I talk about is love. I talk about kindness, and then I just talk about having plans and having goals and having a vision for yourself, and I remember people coming up to me afterwards and they're going like, well, where's the money? Where's the where's all this? And I just said, that's not my reference, for the leadership qualities of the leaders that that I aspire to, the people that I like to surround myself with. They lead with love. I think business does better with love. I think business does better with kindness. And given what's going on in the world, I think more so that's needed today than at any time in history.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I've got in my business, we have three things that we focus on. Number one is we always play big. So we're gonna go big. We're gonna be our best no matter what. Number two is we eat pressure for breakfast. So pressure's gonna come. Let's enjoy it. Let's use it. Let's let it fuel us. And number three is we spread the love. And I still remember there was a time when you were working with me, and we were in Raleigh, Durham, with a client, and we had probably about 5 or 3 other facilitators with us. And I remember you saying, let's go love them up, right? And but that really is what we did. And, we would crush the ratings, and this is like presentation training in big tech companies, but we would crush it. And I was looking at, all right, well, what makes us get these high ratings? Is it our content? Content's really good, right? Could there other people have content like ours? Yeah, maybe. Is it the way we coach? Yeah, we do a good job. But the number one thing that we do in the trainings and that we did, and you were a master at it, was we just made people feel good. And I've had like leaders of multi-billion-dollar organizations, and I'm coaching them. And at the end, they go, the most important thing you did for me is you made me feel good. I just feel good when I feel better when I'm around you. And I think that is a key to leadership. I think you cannot do it and probably still get short-term performance. But if people don't feel good around you, I think it's going to be hard for them to long-term stay committed. I want to touch on something here. You brought it up just a second ago. So you have 4 children, and you have been an amazing dad while you've also worked your tail off in business. And I want you to talk about that a little bit. There was a movie I watched years ago called We Were Soldiers. It had Mel Gibson in it. I don't know if you remember that. It was a movie about the Vietnam War, and he was a colonel. It was one of the biggest battles of the Vietnam War. And he was this colonel, and they were getting ready to go over to Vietnam. His unit was at Fort Benning, Georgia. They're going to go to Vietnam. And there was this young lieutenant that just had a first child, brand new baby. And so the lieutenant was in the church, and he was, his wife had just delivered. He was just praying. And the colonel was trying to find him because he wanted to come congratulate him. He heard he was in the church. So he goes in the church, and he looked at this young lieutenant, and he said, you should be excited. You don't look excited. You have this beautiful baby. And he said, I'm concerned. And he said, what are you concerned about? He said, I don't know if I can be like you. He said, I don't know if I can be a great leader in the military and be a great father. How do you do it? And the colonel, and it was actually a true story. It was General Hal Moore. He became a general. But he said, the way I look at it is what I do in business, the good things I do in business help me be a better father, a better husband. And the things I do with my family help me be a better leader. If I'm just all in one, and I think they're these separate things, then it's really hard because I feel like I'm cheating one or the other. But if I know that if I go into my leadership role and I treat people really well, it makes me, or enables me to be even better at treating my children and my spouse better. But I'm just curious, what's your philosophy? Because you really are a great role model, and your children are amazing. Love your kids so much that they feel like my kids. But how have you been able to do that? You're running a big company, and you've had other, times you're running things that take a lot of your time. How do you, it's not balance either, but how do you make sure you take care of your family and your business?
Yeah. I think it's just having that priority, T-Bird. I have, on my phone, my priorities. I have, again, a gratitude journal. It always starts with, my family, but I think just making it a focus, just making it a priority. And I feel very, very fortunate. I say that my children and now my grandchildren, they are my role models of possibilities. And I think, that being a role model, I haven't always been that role model, but at least, making that a focus, making that a priority to be that example. Our dads, both in the military. My dad, was gone 18 months. We were growing up, and our mom, spent the majority of our time raising us, and made us a priority, and again loved on us and kept us very active and disciplined us. And so I just think just trying to be that same positive influence that my mom and dad were for us, and making this a priority. And if I'm in a business meeting, T-Bird, and I get a call and it's from family, I'm going to excuse myself, right? Because that's the priority. And I think our kids feel that they know, right? It's always not what we say, but it's what we do. And So again, my kids are my role models of possibility, and I've attempted to at least be a role model, for them at the same time. And so I think that, focus from both sides is what's enabled me to enjoy that.
Yeah, but it's awesome because, in growing up, I didn't have a dad. My dad was killed in Vietnam when I was 3, but my mom was the focal figure. You said your mom was a lot too, because your dad in the military was traveling a lot. But you're a man, right? And you're running a business and you're traveling a lot, and you've made it a priority. And I think that's hopefully happening more with males that have children, that they understand, like, it is, they might not be able to be there, but even when we travel, we can get on a Zoom, we can have a call with them every day, we can check in, see how they're doing, we can do all these things. And I think back when you and I were growing up, that probably wasn't the way that men thought. It's like, we provide, and then women, do that. Now women provide, right? And men provide, but there's time for it all. It's one of the reasons why I had a female mentor in the Breakthrough Code that was a CEO that, this male guy is coming and saying, how do you do it? Like, I'm single, I can barely keep up. And she had this philosophy of how you can do, how you can actually, you can have it all, you can't do it all. You have to have leverage points and things like that. But I always thought, because I didn't have a dad, like, I need to be a great dad, like, because I really miss not having a dad, right? And if I was super successful and, made all this money, but my children felt neglected, unloved, like, that would be something that I would just feel horrible about. I knew that probably my number one priority over even business was always my children. Yeah. Right. And I think that was always the same for you too. And yet you're very successful, and I've been able to do some really great things too. So the message is, it doesn't have to be exclusionary. You don't have to pick one or the other. I think if you do pick one, pick your family, and then find ways to leverage yourself where you can create huge success in business too. I mean, what do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. And again, T-Bird, I think you're very, very humble. I mean, your mom, right, Bernice, I mean, she was, that inspiration for us, growing up. As I look back in my life, the love, the commitment, the sacrifice, that she poured into you boys, spilled over into our family. And so, she was a beautiful, role model, for us. And so, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you don't want to, create that tension. You don't want to create that strife. You don't want to, say that you're successful in business, but you go home and there's drama and, there's tension. And not to say that, that hasn't happened in my life. Yeah. But again, my children's mom, again, Nikki and I made it a priority to be co-partners. Yeah. And now Heather and I made a priority to, put all of our, love and attention, and we sacrifice time away from each other, to make sure that, our kids, have been, taken care of, and the grandkids. And so, yeah, you're spot on. It's a matter of priority, and it's not exclusionary. It's both. It's a priority. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people think that once you've got a hugely successful business like what you have, then it's just, easy from there, right? But you talked about starting the business, and then you had COVID hit, which with the cruise business, you had COVID hit where it's, the cruise business was shut down, travel was shut down. You were telling me earlier, we're talking like your biggest countries, you're in 205 countries. Amazing. How many are there in the world? Are you in almost every country in the world, or
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah. But some of your biggest countries, most successful countries, biggest number of partners and members were Russia and Ukraine. And all of a sudden that hit. So talk to people, because I think and I used to think this. I think I used to, as when I was younger, it's like, oh, once I make, whatever, $1 million or something like that, things are going to get easier. And I remember I reached a point, was still pretty young, where I'm like, you know what, I made a lot of money here. This is really cool. And I remember we went to the IMAX theater down at Balboa Park here in San Diego. And we're watching this show on dolphins. And my youngest son was only a couple years old, and Tommy, and then my daughter Kylie was like maybe 5 or 6. And so anyways, we're there. It's a great show. And Tommy falls asleep in the theater. And so I'm holding him, walking out. We're going to the car, and I'd let them off to go in, so they didn't know where the car was. But I hear my wife Stacy and my daughter Kylie talk to my daughter Kylie. She said, "Let's beat Dad and Tommy to the car." And I'm thinking, hey, I got an advantage here. I know where it is. They don't know where it is in the parking lot. So I'm kind of walking in different directions. And then all of a sudden they see it and they start sprinting. And so I take Tommy and I'm sprinting with him to the car, and it's neck and neck, right? And I'm carrying him like a football. And I go between these two cars, and I feel like I got it. I'm going to get there first. And all of a sudden I hit one of those little parking curbs I didn't know was there. I hit that thing and I go flying through the air holding him, and I turned so that he didn't hit the car, and so I smashed the car with my face. My teeth went through my lip. I'm laying down there on the ground, making sure he's okay, and I'm just laying there, and my daughter, who's 5, comes up and looks at me, because they don't know that she goes, "Dad, what'd you do that for?" Like I meant to do it. And that was right the same day when I'm like, oh man, I think I made it. Like, no, bam, you haven't made it. But what's your advice on that?
Yeah. Well, just add, color to the story. In our first 4 years, we grew 300% year over year.
Wow.
So we became $100 million business in our 4th year.
Yeah.
February 2020 are our biggest months in our company history. And then March, the pandemic hits, and the business goes on pause. Yeah. And we made tough decisions. We decided that while the cruise lines weren't going to refund passengers, they wanted to extend the credit. We would do the following: we would give people their money back. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we wanted to get closer to the cruise lines, and we told them that we, this little company, privately held, would extend credit, to these publicly traded companies, Carnival, Norwegian, again, publicly traded companies, to keep the revenue on the books. We just wanted a better margin, because we believed in them. We believed in the industry. Yeah. We believed that they could overcome. They did it with Zika. They did it with, H1N1, avian bird flu, that they would do it again with COVID. And again, we made this decision. We didn't come this far to come this far, but our profitability, suffered, T-Bird, but our top line, again, maintained. We also made another tough decision, because there was concern about our business. We started paying insurance premiums with the provider in the UK, where in the unlikely event that we were to go out of business, those membership payments would be refunded. So again, our partners didn't pay for it. Our members didn't pay for it. Our customers, we paid for it again to, let our membership base know that we were there. We were, there to be around, and that we were going to sustain the business. And again, profitability dropped, but top line maintained itself. Yeah. And the good news is that, since the pandemic, we've now, doubled the business. We're, back up to a couple $100 million. And nice. Profitability is, back to where it was. Yeah. And again, it's because of the tough decisions that we've made, to stand behind it. And so in a membership business, I think the loyalty is so key, to, sustaining the business. And so, so those are some of the decisions that we made.
That's awesome. Well, hey, the people that trust in you at InCruises are lucky to have you as the CEO. All those great decisions that you made that were not easy, right? Because they cost money. And at a time when there was a lot of concern, you You had the confidence, you had the fortitude, you had the courage to do the right thing. And that's not something all leaders do. So you wrote a book recently called Let's Go, The Travel Lover's Guide to Success. Where can people get this book, and where can they find out more about InCruises if they want to travel with you and become a member?
Well, thank you, T-Bird. I would just say it's available on Amazon. Just simply, go into Amazon and just, Let's Go in my name, and I think it's available in several different languages. And I do want to just quickly just say you're right, T-Bird. I mean, no sooner had we caught our breath with COVID, then the biggest market for us was Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, because of the aggressive attack of Ukraine, we end up having to shut down that market. I want to tell one more quick story, and that was 3 years ago. We made a decision to contribute to Mercy Ships.
Mm-hmm.
We decided to become a corporate partner for Mercy Ships, and again, a time when it was uncomfortable to do so. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt about the industry.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other and said, we believe in ourselves. We believe in what we're doing, and let's give back. Let's give back to those that need hope, that need healing. Yeah. And this Mercy Ships has been a great tie-in for us. They're the largest hospital ship in the world, and I was just with some of their key leaders down in Miami this past week, and they're now launching what's called a host facility. They're in Sierra Leone. T-Bird, Sierra Leone has 8 million people, and there are 5 surgeons in that country. And because they're building this host facility, they'll be able to provide, again, that Medicare and doctors, to people that don't have access to it. So that's just another example of decisions that we make. But again, thank you for the opportunity. On InCruises, if people just go into again the website and type in InCruises partner, and anybody that shows up, we're in 17 languages around the world, and whoever they connect with, I'm sure would love to hear from them and tell our story.
Yeah, I love it. So one last thing, like if you were to give somebody a piece of advice on how to live their life, how to live a successful, happy, amazing life, what would it be?
I think tap into the habitual emotion of joy, right? Joy is the journey. I think happiness is the destination. But if you can tap into that habitual emotion of joy, I love laughing with you. I love sharing stories with you, sharing memories with you. It brings me joy. It brings me joy to have you and love you as my best friend. And I think that would be the best tip I could give is tap into where you live and to live in the place of joy. And that's my recommendation.
Yeah. And that takes work, right? You got to work on feeling joy. It's not like it's going to, if you wait for it to pop up, that's not what Mike's talking about. Like create it when you're not feeling it. And then you start to build that muscle. Yeah, this has been amazing. You're just such a great friend and an inspiration. So proud of what you've created, this success, and the way that you've overcome obstacles to create it, even in the company when it was successful. And then you said, COVID, Ukraine, invasion, all these things, and here you are, still thriving and loving and caring and succeeding and helping others. Lots of love to you. Thank you for being on. This has really been a lot of fun. Love you, brother.
Love you too. Thank you, T-Bird.